door.
Turn me around.
I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking,
Walking up to freedom land.
I ain't gonna let nobody
Turn me around. Turn me around. Turn me around.
ain't gonna let nobody.
Turn me around.
I'm gonna,
Keep on walking.
I'm gonna,
Keep on talking.
I'm gonna,
Walking
Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Moral Mondays, and I am Reverend Dr. Liz Theo-Harris, co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, a director of the Cairo Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice. And on behalf of myself and Reverend Dr. William Barber, II out of Repairs the Breach and the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, who's coming live to us today from West Virginia. Glad to be with you, glad to be gathering today as we raise the sound, raise the alarm that we need a just COVID relief package, that it must include $15 minimum wages, everybody in, including sub-minimum wage workers, tip workers, everybody, and it needs to be passed immediately. We're here to say that we need to expand healthcare in this moment and that this all needs to be done now. So you are here. There are thousands of people across the country gathering online. We have folks that are in person also gathering in states across the country. We are going to be here, and what you can do as you're in this broadcast with us is make sure you go to both the link that's on your screen or to poorpeoplescampaign.org, Moral Monday /Moral Monday, and make sure you take action together with us. That means calling senators, and we are particularly trying to put pressure today on Senator Joe Manchin and Senator out of West Virginia and Senator Sinema out of Arizona, who are threatening to block justice, to block living wages, to block exactly what put some folks in the White House and in the Senate, because they were called forward by poor and low-income people all across this country to raise the minimum wage, to expand healthcare, to address racial injustice and systemic racism. And so we need you all to be calling those senators, because they might be a senator of a state that you don't live in, or they might be a senator of a state you do live in, but they are senators that are making decisions about the lives of millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people across this country. And so we need you to make sure that you make those calls. You can also send a letter to your congressperson and say, we need a just COVID relief package that includes minimum wage raises for everybody. And we know that there are 62 million workers who would benefit from raising those wages. And so we're going to go right now straight to West Virginia to hear on the ground what people have, a message for Senator Manchin and for this nation. And so we want to welcome Reverend Dr. William Barber and the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. We're coming here with the Communication Workers of America, with SEIU, with One Fair Wage, with a powerful group of organizations and leaders all across this country.
Today, we are gathering in 8 states, plus the District of Columbia. I just dropped my mask. 8 states plus the District of Columbia. The Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival, has joined SEIU, One Fair Wage, CWA, to demand health care for all, $15 an hour minimum wage for all, and full and just COVID relief. I'm going to try to get out of the way. You see all the people behind, lift your signs up. Now, we need to know here in West Virginia, and particularly for the West Virginia media, there's 710,000 poor people and low-income people in West Virginia. 350,000 of them work for less than $15 an hour. That's 50% of the people in this state working for less than a living wage. Many of them don't have health care. That's not right, and it's time to turn it around. We also want you to know that as we come here today, we got the lottery building on one side and the hospital on the other. The people in this state that don't make 15, they are playing Russian roulette lottery with their lives. Many of them can't even go to the hospital. It's time for that to be over. And Senator Manchin has the power in this moment to make it so, and to be either the greatest advocate for justice and economic equity, or one of the greatest adversaries in this century and the last century. We also in Arizona today, 2.9 million people are poor and low income. 1.2 million make less than a living wage in Arizona. And Kristen Sinema, the senator there, there's no reason you should be talking about not supporting full COVID relief with $15 an hour. We're in 8 states, in D.C., we're gathering today, 45.8 million poor and low-income people, 18 million who make less than $15 an hour. We must be clear that raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, full health care, full COVID relief is essential to lifting up those who have been hurt the worst in this society, those who have died first, those who got sick first, those who forced to go to work first. They shouldn't be the last ones to get help. And it doesn't matter to us whether they're black, they're white, they're brown, they're native, or they're Asian, or they're young, or they're old, or whether they come from urban areas, or whether they come from West Virginia, or whether they come from Appalachia or Alabama. We are God's children, and it's time for this to change. This is our economic Selma. You can't build back unless you build up from the bottom. We also need to know that raising the minimum wage will lift nearly 30 million poor and low-income workers' wages and put $333 billion plus in their pockets over 10 years. These are the workers raising their children. We have 62 million people across this country who will be lifted by $15 million an hour minimum wage. Now, Senator Manchin, this is also Black History Month. And there are two things that we want to say to the senator. You grew up in these hills. You tell us that you grew up poor, then you know it shouldn't be that way. People shouldn't have to struggle like this. We should make sure we can do this, and we should do it now. But Senator Manchin also loves to quote Dr. King, and I'm glad he does. But you need to understand, Dr. King was for a living wage. And if you vote against this, raising a living wage, you will be blocking 44% of all African Americans workers across this country from having a living wage. It has taken Black people 400 years to get to from 0 to 725. We can't wait any longer for 15. And in the hills of West Virginia, it has taken far too long. For far too long, the people in West Virginia and in the hills of West Virginia have built this country, and it's time that somebody cares about them and lifts them up. So this is about racial equity. It's about justice equity. It's about geographical equity. Senator Manchin, because you grew up in poverty, you ought to be the strongest and the loudest for COVID relief with 15 an hour. It is because of your experience. It is because of it. You say you're concerned about small businesses. Well, small businesses grow when poor and low-wealth people have money in their pocket. That's how they grow. Now, we've never been this close. And we say to Democrats, if you turn back on this, it will be one of the greatest missteps and wrongful promises, because you promised it in your platform. You promised it in the presidential. If you turn back now, you will be abandoning the very people that voted for you. 55% of all poor and low-wealth people voted for Democrats. Republicans also. We're not letting the senator here, the junior senator. Republicans, you need to stop blocking and start lifting. Senator Manchin, you need to be strong and clear and focused as a Democrat. The Republicans, you need to stop blocking and start lifting, because we are all God's children, and it's time that we care about those from the bottom first. Do not call us essential workers and then don't provide the essential things that we need. The time is now. Our next speakers are coming right up right now from West Virginia. First, Gene and Pam.
And I was born and raised here in West Virginia. I currently live in Fayette County. Well, last Thursday, Senator Manchin met with the Poor People's Campaign. He had double masking. He had contacted us for a meeting. We did not contact him. I want you to know that. What we have done got his attention, so he contacted us. Well, one of the things I heard Senator Manchin say is he was born and raised poor. His family was poor. He knows West Virginians are poor. Well, I am wondering, since he knows West Virginians are poor, and since he knows the position he is in, why is he not working to give us the full 15 minimum wage? He knows that is lower than what is needed right now. Well, Senator Manchin, we are here to help you become the senator that you don't think you can be. That's our job. We're going to help you do that. You know, we have low income. We have people who are actually the people we're talking about. They're going to come and talk to you some more. You have met some already. But we're going to keep at it. We're not quitting. We're not giving up.
That's right. That's right.
And I want you to know, over there a little bit is Senator Capito. We're not letting you off the hook. You are representing West Virginians also. And we also know that you and Senator Manchin like to do these things together and get them in the newspaper. That's wonderful. Now, we want to see the two of you become the heroes and sheroes of West Virginia. You get together. Okay. Something I kind of forgotten. Senator Manchin mentioned this $11 an hour minimum wage. You can make it off $11 an hour. Well, I don't think so. Because you're going to hear at some point one of our speakers who knows that is not true. Senator Manchin, do the right thing. Become the senator that you can become. Take care of West Virginia. Okay.
Hello, my name's Pam Garrison. I've been a minimum wage worker my whole life, and I don't want it to be generational. Our kids are working minimum wage now. But we have to take the people on Social Security. We're supporting our young people because on minimum wage, they're paying $50 for a box of diapers.
That's right.
They're paying $700 to $800 rent, $350 utilities. They cannot live like that. And the older ones, it's our kids. Every one of us want to see our kids do better. We don't want to make poverty a generational thing that we hand to our kids to rake and scrape. And our grandkids, the schools are feeding our kids right now after school and on the weekends because there is such a food shortage, such a food insecurities in West Virginia. This ain't right, people. This ain't right. We're not lazy. We work. We work. We want a living wage. We want unions. We want health care. We want just what basic people need. And that's all we're asking for. Live in our shoes. Live in our shoes one day. One day. And you will see $15 an hour is not too much. We want to live. Having relief is not too much. And if we can afford lotteries, we can afford to feed our kids.
That's right.
Thank you. And join us.
What do you say to Senator Manchin?
Senator Manchin, listen. Listen to your people. We don't want a handout. We want fair.
That's right.
Come and give us what we want.
That's right.
Do what is right.
That's right. That's right.
I'm gonna have to do it like this because it ain't allowing me to.
Ready?
All right.
Back to Liz. My name is Matt Kerner, and anytime I speak, I like to start out by saying that I am a person living in long-term recovery from a substance use disorder. What that means to me is that for almost 15 years, I haven't had a drink or used any mood or mind-altering chemicals to adjust my reality to make my life acceptable to me. What 15 years of recovery has done for me is allowed me to be somebody who has taken the darkest moments of my life and turned them into my greatest assets.
Yes, sir.
So that today I can help other people escape addiction, escape homelessness, and escape poverty.
Yes, sir.
When I came out of the Army in 1990, I began working the very next day in a lumber mill for minimum wage, which at the time was $3.80 an hour. That meant that after taxes, I made $138 a week for 40 hours of backbreaking labor. Adjusted for inflation, that $3.80 today would be $765, which is less money people are making now working for minimum wage than I did then.
That's right.
But that $138 a week meant that when I needed to see a medical specialist because I had no health care, I had to save money for months. And after I finally got that appointment, the prescriptions that were ordered for me, there was no way I could pay for those.
That's right. Not right. Let's change it.
Most of my money at that time went to maintaining and putting fuel in a 20-year-old pickup so I could get to work the next week. Working for minimum wage meant that as a U.S. Army veteran, I was so poor that I had to live with my mother because I couldn't afford to be self-sufficient. When I worked at that lumber mill, I was in the office one day and somebody came in there, he was begging the plant manager for a raise. His wife was pregnant, and due to a complicated pregnancy, she couldn't work. She wasn't going to be able to work for an extended period of time. And he was told by the plant manager that minimum wage is our way of telling you if we could pay you any less, we would.
Talk to Senator Manchin. Tell him what you need.
Today I work in the addiction recovery field. And one of my greatest concerns is that when I release people, I release them back into poverty, which greatly exacerbates the chances of them relapsing or re-engaging criminal behavior. Things that would not happen if they had the dignity of working for a living wage. Senator Manchin,
That's it. Talk to him.
low-wage workers across this country are counting on you. You have made yourself a linchpin of what is happening now in Congress. They're holding their breath and they're praying that you'll come through for them. We've spoken once, and you've talked about 2018 as being your last campaign. And whether or not that happens, we all know that you aren't working in the U.S. Senate because you needed a job. We know that you're doing that because part of your makeup is wanting to be of service to others. And the bottom line is that at some point in our lives, we all want to be the hero. We've all sat on an empty playground basketball court with the clock in our head running down. We're down to 3 seconds and we got to take that shot because we're going to bring the NCAA championship banner home to the Coliseum in Morgantown. Senator Manchin, take your shot. Do what's best for West Virginia's families and children. Think it. Bring that home to us.
That's it. That's it.
Powerful words and an action coming out of West Virginia. Amazing folks that are doing organizing right on the ground in West Virginia and all across the country. We have folks that speak outs in Arizona, in California, and Illinois, in Michigan, in New Hampshire, and New York, and Pennsylvania, and in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And we're here today for this Moral Monday because we're calling to heal this nation. We're saying we need health care for all. We're saying we need COVID relief with $15 an hour for all workers, including sub-minimum wage workers now. And what we know is that as we fight and move forward together, we cannot move one step back. There are powerful actions still taking place and will continue, but we're going to keep on moving. I want to now introduce and welcome Mary Kay Henry, president of SEIU, in the forefront of this struggle for workers' rights, for living wages, and to lift everybody in this civil society from the bottom. And so, Mary Kay Henry, thank you so much for the work you're doing. We welcome you and workers from SEIU to this broadcast now.
Thank you so much, Reverend Liz Theo Harris and Bishop William Barber II, and to every leader in the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival. The 2 million members of SEIU are proud to stand with you, as communications workers of America, and One Fair Wage in demanding that our Congress take action to eliminate the sub-minimum tipped wage and to raise wages to 15 and to provide a union for all working people in this country, in addition to the COVID relief that we need, and in addition to state and local governments getting the resources they need to crush the virus and to create good jobs for all of us to do all across this economy. I'm so proud that our members are fighting alongside the Poor People's Campaign in getting the Senate to come to their senses. As we just heard powerfully from our leaders in West Virginia, we agree this is a matter about racial equity, about justice equity, and geographic equity, as Bishop Barber said. And we know that we've had essential workers on the front lines of this pandemic showing up to feed us, to care for us, and serve us since the beginning of this pandemic. And now is the time to respect us, protect us, and pay us what we're worth, to actually treat us as essential and not just call us essential. And one of the leaders in this movement from our union, Latanya Jones Costa, is with me today from Atlanta, Georgia. She's a home care provider. She's going to describe why she does this work and why it means so much to her to be part of this movement. There are 4 million home care providers in this nation, earning between $7.25 an hour and $9 as the average wage for a job that is essential in caring for our elders and people with disabilities. And I know the Poor People's Campaign joins me in saying it's long past time for these women, primarily women of color and immigrant women, to be valued for the work they do. And that's why joining with you in demanding the $15 minimum wage as part of the American Rescue Plan is so essential to honoring the work that caregivers do each and every day. Latanya, please join us in telling your story about why you're fighting for 15 for caregivers all across this country.
Thank you, Mary Kay. My name is Latanya Jones Costa. I'm a mother, a wife, and a home care worker in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been working in home care for 23 years. Home care is a calling. We make sure seniors and people with disabilities have quality of life. In addition to helping with baths or getting prescriptions filled, we're their confidants, their housekeepers, and their cooks. Home care workers are doing everything we can to help other people, but there's no one helping us. Despite being a PCA and having advanced certifications, my agency only pays $10 an hour. I don't have health care, paid leave, or sick time. Because of COVID and families cutting back on people coming into their homes, my agency didn't have any hours for me. I was able to pick up a client on my own, but she recently passed away. Now, as I wait for my next client, I'm struggling. I have to make the difficult choice of exposing myself and my family to the coronavirus or not get paid. I've been a part of Fight for 15 in the union for about 6 years. It inspired me to turn out my family and all my friends and neighbors to vote in November and in the special Georgia Senate election in January. Finally, I feel there's hope. We finally have leaders who will take bold action on racial and economic justice. That starts with passing a minimum wage of $15 an hour. That wage so many families like mine need. But we can't stop there. To truly change how we care for our nation's seniors and people with disabilities, we need a much bigger investment in the home care workers who are keeping them safe at home. President Biden's Care Workforce Plan would make needed home care jobs good union jobs that pay professional caregivers like me a minimum of $15 and provide basic benefits like health care and paid sick leave. Home care is essential, and home care workers are essential workers. It's time to respect us, protect us, and pay us. Thank you, Mary Kay.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. I'm sure people heard that, right? We have healthcare workers, home healthcare workers that cannot get paid sick leave, that cannot get the hours, and that cannot afford healthcare in the richest country in the world. And this is not right. This is not just. All of these issues are connected, and that's why we're connecting them up and making our our voices loud and clear on this Moral Monday. Now, I want to remind people that they should go to poorpeoplescampaign.org/Moral Monday and make sure that you call your senators, you send your letters to your congresspeople, and that you take action as you're tuning in. And now it's my great honor to introduce another really powerful partner in this work. We've been partnering for the last couple of weeks with One Fair Wage and Saru Jarayaman. And thank you so much for the powerful actions that people are doing across this country, in cities and states across the country as a part of One Fair Wage. We know that too often and for too long, sub-minimum wage workers, tip workers have been left out. That is a legacy of slavery. We cannot allow that to happen in this minimum wage bill. We know that all of us are committed to fighting to make sure that everybody is in, nobody's out. So thank you so much for your leadership and for helping to organize this all today.
Thank you so much, Reverend Liz and Reverend Barber and Mary Kay and CWA and everybody who's a part of today's event. We really deeply appreciate being a part of a movement for, livable wages, and a truly historic moment, because as you mentioned, not only is it historic to raise the wage to 15, it is historic, this bill, because there has never been a federal minimum wage increase in the history of the United States before that didn't cut out tipped workers. There has never been a bill prior to this one at the federal level that didn't actually leave tipped workers behind. Who are tipped workers? They are literally 14 million restaurant workers, and 6 million of those are mostly women, waitresses and IHOPs and Denny's across the country, that even before the pandemic, they struggled with the highest rates of economic instability and sexual harassment of any industry. And with the pandemic, that became life-threatening because these workers were asked to enforce social distancing and mask rules on the very same customers from whom they had to get tips. And thousands of women across the country, some of whom were profiled in yesterday's Sunday New York Times, actually were asked to take off their masks to have male customers judge their looks and therefore their tips on that basis, which is life-threatening to them and their families. So it is become a COVID emergency. It has become a COVID emergency when you have workers who are living off tips because they get a wage of $2 and feel they must expose themselves to the virus to get tips. That is a COVID emergency. And that's why 135,000 tipped workers across the country have signed on to a petition for One Fair Wage, for the Raise the Wage Act, along with on Thursday, 200 small business restaurant owners came out publicly, having signed on to a letter to Congress asking for them to pass the Raise the Wage Act now. And many of those employers that signed on are with us today, providing food at the local events. I really want to thank them. We'll hear from one later in the program. And I want to thank all the tipped workers who are standing with all of you at the Poor People's Campaign and SEIU in the cold, in the rain today, in the snow and ice. I want to shout out folks around the country, tipped workers who have come out and, all over, including Damani, our leader in New York, and Mamdou, my co-founder and brother in Orlando, and so many others. And right now I want to introduce in Phoenix, Arizona, Haley, who has been a tipped worker herself and has also started organizing her peers in Phoenix, where Senator Sinema has not yet signed on to the Raise the Wage Act. So Haley, thank you for joining us.
Now! What do we want? 15! What do we want it? Now! What do we want? 15! What do we want it? Now! Yeah!
I can hold this so I can hold my feet. So we're gonna keep going. Just get it one more time because we are representing Arizona. Si se puede. 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 Si se puede.
Yes.
We are all essential. And we are treated not essential. It's not acceptable. Unions work. We need one fair wage. And what do we want?
Now.
Now.
restaurant worker jobs were hard enough before the pandemic. Once again, I'm Haley. I am a service worker. I worked in a restaurant during the pandemic. I touch forks and knives and plates. I touch masks that people have taken off their faces if they wear them into the restaurant. Every single day I go to work with a knot in my stomach. What am I going to bring home? Who am I going to bring it home to? Sometimes healthcare workers are the people that don't care, that are apathetic, that would rather enjoy a meal and pretend like everything is normal. Everything is not normal. We have, I said it before and I'll say it again, we have healthcare workers without healthcare. We certainly have tipped workers without healthcare. It's unacceptable. But I'm here fighting for all. Getting emotional. I had a worker in my back of house, 8, 9, fully pregnant, on her feet in a hot kitchen, working hours and hours and hours. She should not be in a hot kitchen working hours and hours and hours with a life growing inside of her at the wage she's making. It's unacceptable. And that is not a one-off story. There are countless stories just like that. And it's not okay. This is absolutely atrocious, and Senator Sinema has not shown up. We're demanding that she shows up. Because when you, regardless of race or gender, anything, marginalized groups are being affected disproportionately, and it is unacceptable. We are dealing with a pandemic. We are dealing with losing homes and a crisis. Nothing about this is okay. And I go back to that $4, those 4 $1 bills that I look at on my dresser, and I see them, and I'm reminded that I am worth more, that we are worth more. Yes. We're a mighty group of people. We will continue to fight in unity and fight to have a livable wage and live comfortably and not be scared and have anxiety over who knows what could possibly happen. It's not right. And so I'll continue to reiterate, Senator Sinema needs to show up.
Right.
And she needs to show support and advocacy for this, for one fair wage, and for health care for all. $15 with tips on top, and health care for all.
That is powerful, powerful, powerful. We thank the leaders in Phoenix, Arizona, and Haley for that story, for that clarion call, right? And let me remind folks that we all are impacted by what Senator Sinema is doing right now. And so it is our obligation, it is our duty to listen to the cries of workers who are being exploited and oppressed in this time and say that this is not right. It doesn't have to be this way. We're going to now head over to Washington, D.C. A powerful action and speak out is taking place there at our nation's capital. We want to open it up to Washington, D.C. We were rocking out a little bit. Everybody was dancing, and we're ready to hear, the powerful testimonies coming out of there as well.
Inspiring politician from Milwaukee, Zach Sarate. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much to all those who showed up and to all those at home watching. The time and effort you're putting towards this cause will not go unnoticed. Instead, you'll be in history books remembered as a generation that said, enough is enough, we demand better. My name is Tisok Alexander Sarate. I'm a 22-year-old from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and this is the story about how COVID-19 brought about intense challenges and unexpected rewards into my life. Last March, I was a senior at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I knew that after college, I would like to explore the world and serve as many communities as possible. But what I didn't know was that due to a virus, I would not step foot on campus as a student again. The university encouraged their students after spring break to stay at home due to the pandemic. And so I spent the next few weeks finishing up my classes and talking to this friend I had made on one of my last nights in Madison. After graduating about 2 months later, I realized two things. I had no idea what I was going to do after college, and that I had fallen madly in love with this friend I had made. I know what some of you may be thinking, how could you fall in love with somebody after just a couple months of knowing one another? But this was different. We spent each and every day talking to one another, offering support, laughing, building this incredible bond that I became hooked on. This friend eventually became my girlfriend, and soon after, my girlfriend was offered a job in DC with Ocean Conservancy. I knew I could not, nor would not live without this person, so I decided to start looking for a job. I needed to save up enough money for the move and a couple months worth of rent. I figured, how hard could it be to find a job once I moved into the DC area? Now, let me tell you something I don't often admit. I was sadly mistaken. And although I was naive at the time, I was still very determined and kept a positive attitude each and every day. A week after she was offered the job, I was hired as a food server at a restaurant in Milwaukee. Here's how we got paid. Every server, busser, and waiter from each shift had to split the cash and credit card tips we earned for the day. We got to pocket our cash tips on a daily basis, and the credit card tips came to us in the form of a check on a weekly basis. This simply wasn't enough. I worked 40 hours per week and only made $300 a check. It didn't help that some folks worked harder than others, that some refused to share their chips, and that ultimately I felt undervalued as an employee by management. I'm sure some of you have had similar experiences. I mean, why is this fair? Why can't we have more respect, let alone a livable wage? But like servers are always expected to do, I stepped foot into work every day, served each cup of coffee, greeted each guest walking in and out of the building, all with a smile on my face. And that's because I believed in myself. And I believe we, as a collective, have the power to change the status quo. I needed to believe that I could turn this dream of a livable wage for restaurant workers into a reality. I needed to take a leap of faith and needed to push my limits. That's because the first step to accomplishing anything, folks, is to simply believe in yourself. I can't guarantee you that your journey in life will be easy, because mine wasn't. What they don't teach you every day is that the journey to success isn't a pretty one. In order to see the rainbow, you got to get through the rain. So keep trying your hardest and believe in yourself. I challenge you to follow your dreams and to listen to the signs that the universe is trying to give to you. It may seem like opportunity is limited and that the world is hopeless, but take it from me. You can and you will succeed. You just need to hold on to faith, hold on to hope, and most importantly, your dedication. Although finding work in DC took longer than I had anticipated, and even though I had experiences with certain establishments as a worker, which I knew were unacceptable, it was the most rewarding experience ever. I now teach a group of 4 to 6-year-olds who fill my life up with an abundant amount of positivity. Inspiring generations, especially theirs, has always been what drives me. In spite of COVID-19, I refuse to stop dreaming big. One day I'll open up my own taco stand, my own school, and become a politician so that I can advocate for things like equity and equality for all. Here I am.
It's a powerful testimony going on and a powerful action at our nation's capital. We do have dreams, and that's the reason that we are here on this Moral Monday while we're organizing together. I'm going to go straight to New York City, where folks are in the snow, in the rain, in the sleet, and we'll hear from leaders there in New York City.
Rin in New York City, if you could come off mute and turn your phone to the side too, then we can hear what's going on there.
More than anything. But I will say that as a small business owner, I've been fighting for the survival of my business for almost 12 months now, and spending a lot of time reflecting on a lot of the things that have been wrong with our industry during that time, and a lot of the things that COVID exposed that were wrong with our industry long before a pandemic came about. With that being said, I think that there's also an opportunity to move beyond just acknowledgement of those inequities and reflection upon that, and take real action and put action and meaning behind the words that we're all using right now, like accountability and dealing with inequities. When I opened my business and asked my employees to come back and help fight for the survival of my business, I wanted to make sure that I had started to do the bare minimum for as an owner, and to stand in solidarity with them meant that we were going to offer more than just the bare minimum, sub-minimum wage for even our tipped employees. And we offered more than a full minimum wage for them. That's the least that we could do as a small business. And it is really the first step, the bare minimum, the first step in addressing how we can make our industry more sustainable, how we can make our workforce more sustainable, and how we can bring humanity, dignity back to an industry built on providing hospitality, but who has left hospitality out of how we treat our workers. So thank you for being here, all of you, but all inspire me. I'm asking for not just Senator Schumer and our other elected officials to stand in solidarity with workers, but also my fellow business owners to stand up, take accountability, and support the people that are supporting them to open their doors every day. So thank you.
So we're hearing from business owners, we're hearing from workers about why we need a living wage, why we need comprehensive COVID relief, why we need to expand healthcare. We're moving next to Chicago. Powerful speak out and action taking place there. Chicago, welcome to Moral Mondays.
Chicago, if you could unmute so we can hear what's going on there.
We're gonna shut it down. Because we need this thing. Call your carpet fix. I'm telling you, we need this thing. Call your carpet fix. Your U.S. carpet first. Your Chewy Garcias, your Laura Underwood, call your Illinois U.S. Congress person. Tell them that all 10 workers need 15 on the federal level. We need it on the federal level so it can be the law of the land right now, today. That's what we need. All young people, all people, Black people, Latino people, poor people. We need what we want now, right now. Health care. We need health care. We need health care. We need housing. We need education for our kids. We need police accountability. We need all of this, and that's why we're all united out here right now. We need housing. We need health care. We need all of that. Yes, we ready to change the game. And we out here. We out here fighting. And we gonna keep being out here.
We heard the call to action in Chicago, but we need health care. We need to raise the wage, and we need everybody here to call your senators, to call Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema, make sure that we actually have a just COVID relief package that includes minimum wage of $15, the rights for union members to keep on organizing, and to include sub-minimum wage workers in that. We're going to move to Detroit, where folks are also speaking out and organizing. Welcome, Detroit. Please come off mute and share with us what you're doing out there today.
How y'all doing? We are here in Detroit. We are here fighting for one fair wage. I am Devontae Burnley. I am an executive chef, and I just wanted to kind of talk about what's going on in our city and the struggles that we're having with this one fair wage being very, very necessary for tip and non-tip workers. The restaurant industry is one of the most strenuous and most back-breaking industries to work in, where we are required to work very long hours for multiple days and unfortunately get minimal benefits and minimal pay. I can recall an experience in my life personally where at 19 years old, I became a single dad, and I having to work 50 hours plus a week at 2 different jobs just to be able to pay my rent and pay for some decent daycare to keep those jobs. Because if I didn't pay for the daycare, I had nowhere to keep my son. Thus, I couldn't work. So it's an extremely unfortunate trickle-down effect to have to pay for daycare and pay for childcare just to be able to go work 2 separate jobs and have no work to life and family balance. The stress of working on these multiple jobs, the stress, because the goal ultimately is always to work one job and get paid one place at a fair wage. Having to work 2 separate jobs, work 100 plus hours a week, and virtually have my child be raised in daycare centers and by other family caused me to actually have a mental breakdown. It pushed me into an alcohol and drug-induced lifestyle that was extremely unhealthy, and it caused me to ultimately have a mental breakdown. Having been paid one fair wage at one place for tip workers and non-tip workers is essential. Mental illness is extremely linked to the restaurant industry far too often. And a lot of that is due to monetary. It is due to not being paid. It is due to working long hours, back-breaking work, and not being paid the fair wage. It's essential that we get tip workers and non-tip workers paid a fair wage in order to honestly eliminate all this mental stress that's happening in the industry and give people the opportunity to actually raise their children and take care of their families in a healthy and safe way. Thank you, and that's what I got to say for Detroit. One fair wage is necessary.
Thank you. Powerful Detroit. Yes, we heard it. We do need one fair wage, and we need it now. Not in a couple years, not over time. We need it now. We're going to move to New Hampshire, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Please come with us today, and we're here ready to hear why you're out there and the action that's happening there.
Hey everybody, Isaac Grimm here from Rights and Democracy, New Hampshire, out here with the leftist marching band, out here with our crew, our activists, saying that it's time for Maggie Hassan, for Senator Jeanne Shaheen to stand up and co-sponsor the Raise the Wage Act. We need them to stand with workers from across the country who deserve a livable wage. And we're out here keeping warm by dancing. I'm going to pass it over to the marching band to help us get down. From you about why we're out here, why we need Hassan to stand with us to raise the wage.
Are demanding Senator Hassan get behind them, raise to $15. We need $15 here in the state of New Hampshire. It's important for our workers. It's important for the people of New Hampshire. We're out here today to send that message loud and clear.
Thank you, Robin. Catherine, why are you out here today?
I'm here because I think that if we can believe in freehand economics, where was the freehand when Lehman Brothers collapsed? And if you believe in freehand economics, then your pockets are full. So I'm just asking for just decency and to give some dignity to people. And the reason why we don't have more people here is because they're all out working, trying to pay the bills.
That's right. We're out here, but we're trying to keep it safe. And we're out here because we know that tens of thousands, almost 200,000 workers in New Hampshire would benefit from a $15 minimum wage. We know that our restaurants, that our businesses can afford that, and it could make our economy stronger. We know that folks have been struggling to get restaurant workers to come back to work, and this would make the difference for them. We're out here not only for justice and fairness for our people, but for an economy that's stronger in the face of this pandemic and this recession. We know we can do it. We need our senators, Hassan and Shaheen, to stand with us. Thank you all for being out here across the country, and we hope we can get our senators on board now. We need it now.
Now.
Raise the wage now!
Powerful message and call to action from New Hampshire. We thank everybody that's out there. And we do have our marching orders and luckily also a marching band. We're gonna take a minute, come online to some of the folks, some of the labor leaders that we have also in this midst that are partnering together, building a broad and big movement. I want to introduce Roz Pellis, the senior advisor to the Poor People's Campaign and vice president of repairs of the breach, who's going to introduce our next speakers now.
So this is a powerful day all over the country, but we really are seeing today people all over the country standing up and demanding COVID relief that must definitely include a minimum wage raise to $15 an hour for all workers and health care for all. Everybody has the right to live. Folks across this country are refusing to be divided. We stand united across all lines, geography, race, type of work, union members and tip workers. We're all in this together. When we stand together, we can win together. And the unions are definitely in this fight. They are definitely standing up around these issues and standing up for all of us. Our next speaker is Sarah Steffens, Secretary Treasurer of the Communication Workers of America. Sarah, who is a great leader of the labor movement, who's been in this fight, will join us and tell us why CWA is in this fight. Sarah?
Thank you so much, Roz. I am proud to be here today with the Poor People's Campaign and to echo this call for just COVID-19 relief and a $15 minimum wage for all workers. This would have a profound effect on many workers who are organizing with our union, including workers in the airline industry, at call centers, retail stores, and banks. These frontline workers are on the job full-time for some of our nation's most profitable corporations, but many are still paid poverty wages. Most of the people working these jobs, these low-wage jobs, are adult women who, despite working full-time, struggle to support their families and their children. They have to make tough choices about which bills to pay or whether to fill the gas tank or get the groceries they need to feed their family. And that is unacceptable in a nation as wealthy as ours. It's wrong. I'm proud to introduce all of you today to Tanya Jackson, a customer service rep at the Maximus Call Center in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Ms. Jackson has been organizing with her coworkers at the call center and with our union CWA for higher wages, better treatment on the job, access to affordable health care. Maximus is the largest provider of call center services to the federal government. Tanya works an important, difficult job answering the lines for 1-800-Medicare and the Affordable Care Act marketplace. She and her coworkers are essential government employees, and they assist Americans with critical questions about their health care. During this pandemic, their work is more important than ever, and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. But Tanya is currently only being paid about $11 an hour. And last month, to make things worse, Maximus imposed major health care coverage costs on their employees. The new health plans require either a $4,500 deductible or $1,950 in new premiums, and that is completely unaffordable on Tanya's current wage. It's shameful for a major public contractor like Maximus, which reported $3.4 billion in revenue last year, to shift costs for healthcare on the backs of their workforce. We at CWA are also calling on President Biden and his administration to fulfill their promise to federal contractor workers like Tanya and to raise the federal contractor minimum wage. This could be done easily through an executive order. We want it to be $15 an hour as soon as possible. This would be a critical step in the right direction to raise pay for women like Tanya Jackson, as well as hundreds of thousands of low-wage workers nationwide who are doing essential work on behalf of our government. So with that, I'll pass it to Ms. Jackson, and she can tell you a little bit about herself and the brave struggle that she and her coworkers have been fighting together.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Steffens, for that powerful introduction. I am proud to stand here today in solidarity with you all in the struggle for a living wage for all working people. My name is Tanya Jackson. I am a grandmother, a mother, and a hardworking, God-fearing woman. I work both at Maximus Call Center and part-time doing private care. At Maximus, I make around $11 an hour, and it is still barely enough with the extra job to supplement my income and make enough to support my family like I need to. I love taking care of people and take pride in my work helping Medicare beneficiaries understand their health care insurance, which I've done for almost 6 years. It can be tough, and it takes a lot of knowledge and understanding to get around our healthcare system. But even so, I only make the bare minimum required by law for my job as a federal contractor worker, just around $11 an hour for that complex work. When your employer pays you the legal minimum, whether it's criminally low federal minimum wage of the $7.25 or minimum amount of federal government has set aside for its contractors' employees, it tells you something. It tells you that your employer would gladly pay you less if they could get away with it. On top of that, Maximus changed our healthcare carriers in 2021, and they hiked our deductible for the plan from $2,500 to $4,500 annually. And I asked myself, how can my coworkers and I afford the additional $2,000 a year out of pocket when we make as little as $11 per hour? Even without those additional healthcare costs, it's a struggle. I'm a hard worker. I believe in fair pay and for an honest day's work. A $15 an hour minimum wage is a good start for ensuring all of America isn't merely surviving, but truly living the American dream. This is one of the many reasons my coworkers and I are organizing a union with CWA so that we can get the pay, benefits, and respect that we deserve. If we made more, it would reduce racial and gender pay disparities in our community, help boost our local economy, and bring badly needed money to Mississippi. The city I work in, Hattiesburg, has a lot of service industries and frontline workers who make as little as $7.25 per hour. No one can survive or raise a family on that. I am so inspired by this movement and the commitment I've seen on this call to a better future for all working Americans. I promise to keep struggling and fighting alongside all of you until our demands for better living for all is met. As we say at our union organization meetings, when we move, they move. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. And that's so right. When we move, they will move. And that has to be a slogan we pick up. You know, a real relief bill truly requires a $15 minimum wage and health care for all. And I want to introduce our next speaker, Roberto Torres, a Unite Here union member and hotel worker from New York City. He and tens of thousands of his union brothers and sisters know the pain and fear of the loss of health care. Roberto, will you tell us your story?
Thank you, Roz. My name is Roberto Torres. I have worked as a room service server at Park Hyatt since 2014, and I've been a proud member of the Hotel Trades Council for 11 years. I want to urge Congress to include full COBRA coverage in the next stimulus package. Since being laid off, keeping my insurance has been one of my biggest concerns. Luckily, our union was able to negotiate an extension of health insurance coverage with the industry, which extended our care through the end of 2020. After the extension expired, 2 out of our 4 union health centers temporarily closed due to the lack of required funding. For our members who are still working, this has left them with fewer options for care and forced many of them to travel further to receive less comprehensive care. This year, members who have been laid off like me are faced with the prospect of paying for new coverage out of pocket, going without insurance until we are able to return to work. My father is also an HCC member and was laid off from his position last year. We are all worried about my mother, who is especially vulnerable to COVID because of her asthma. For as long as I can remember, our family has always gone to our union's health centers for medical care, And this pandemic is the first time that we have had to face the possibility of losing our coverage. Without a full subsidy of COBRA, I know that many of my fellow members will not be able to afford paying out of pocket for the health insurance, which means that they will continue to go without health care for the indefinite period of time while we wait for the hotel industry to gradually recover. While we know that our healthcare system leaves far too many people out, we will continue to fight for health coverage for everyone. Right now, there are nearly 100,000 of my fellow union members and their families who are in danger of losing their healthcare in the middle of a pandemic if the relief package doesn't include full COBRA coverage. My coworkers and I stand in solidarity with everyone who does not have access to health insurance. During this pandemic, we don't want to see anyone go backwards. We are all standing together for health care for everyone. Thank you for your time.
Powerful stories, powerful organizing that people are doing. And indeed, this is a moment for solidarity. And that's what we're seeing today on this Moral Monday in cities and states across the country as these organizations and unions come together. We still have more speakouts that are taking place. And so I want to move us quickly to San Francisco, California, where we're going to hear why people are there organizing and how important it is for us to all come together and join. So California, if you would come off mute, we'd love to hear what you're out there doing today.
Packer, delivery driver, Linda Liang has been a restaurant cook, a culinary instructor, a food tour guide, and a private chef. And she started supporting the Poor People's Campaign and One Fair Wage last year. So I want to invite Linda Liang to come tell us what it's like. Linda Liang, we're going to invite you to come speak to the nation about your situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Now. My name is Linda, and like she said, I've worked in the food service industry for the past 7 years in California all the time. So luckily, I always had one fair wage plus full tips on top. And the places I worked at distributed the tips equally between front of house and back of house staff. So it really helped with the peace of mind, knowing that I had a baseline wage that I could always count on. And this also shielded me from the blatant sexual harassment that workers in other states would experience. During the pandemic, when I lost my jobs, fortunately, my wages were high enough to qualify for unemployment. It took 3 months of constant follow-up, but it finally came. But all of that is just to say that I'm not immune from other issues in my industry. For example, it's extremely expensive to live here in the Bay Area. Everyone here can sort of attest to that. The living wage here is probably closer to $30 an hour. So because of that, the gigs here are extremely competitive to come by. And I've always had to have 2 to 3 jobs at any given time just to stitch together a livable income. And that constant hustling can really take a toll on you mentally and emotionally. And then there will be times when things like a shift will be slow and management would just send you home early and just cut off your wages short for the day. And then when I started moving into spaces where I was one of the few people of color, I would notice very subtle slights from my white coworkers, such as they would take credit for things I said or did earlier. Just, very kind of little gestures like that can sort of accumulate over time. And so all of this is very common in my industry and across all industries, but that doesn't make it okay. We all deserve to prosper and to live with dignity and respect. And having basic economic security just makes it a little bit easier to fight the other battles that we have to fight. So I'm really happy to be here to support workers from all over the country and Poor People's Campaign and One Fair Wage, and to demand an increase to the federal minimum wage. Thank you.
Thank you so much from California. It's powerful to hear the organizing that's happening there and the call for justice, for living wages, for healthcare, and for really comprehensive COVID relief. We're going to move now from the west down to the south to Orlando, Florida. We're so excited that there's a powerful action taking place there. If you'll come off mute and tell us what you're doing and we can take part with you.
We want it
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
What do we want it
Now!
If we don't get it,
Shut it down!
If we don't get it,
Shut it down!
we don't get it.
Shut it down! No justice!
No peace!
No
No
justice!
justice!
Okay,
No justice!
okay, we're here in Orlando downtown, and we're here demanding that Senator Rubio sign the bill that is there in hand. So we are all with our friend here from Fight for 15, and we're asking them to sign this bill. We're asking them to make sure. We're asking them to, this slavery wage that we are getting in the whole U.S. $15. So we are demanding 15 plus steps. And I'm here with my friend from Fight for 15, and Sam is a worker at Starbucks and
Hi, my name is Sammy. I am a worker at Starbucks. I make $11 an hour. And that is a sub-poverty wage. That is not enough to pay the $1,000 a month rent bill in Orlando, Florida. 61% of Floridians voted in favor of the $15 minimum wage. So it should be common sense that Marco Rubio and Senator Scott vote yes for a $15 minimum wage, not just for retail hourly workers, but also for tip workers, also for workers with disabilities, and that they stick up against the Florida legislature that's trying to take away $15 from people who are supposedly hard to hire, from people who are under 21, from people who are returning citizens who have served their time. And so we're asking today that Senator Rubio and Senator Scott both vote yes for the $15 minimum wage nationally, and that they stand up for Floridians across the state and make sure that they all get $15 an hour. Thank you so much.
What do we want?
Powerful statement.
When do we want it?
What do we want? 15. When do we want it now? When do we need it now? So it's powerful to hear the protests, the voices, the stories, the testimonies we heard it from Florida, right? Where in record numbers, poor and low income people turned out and voted for living wages. And we saw this across the country. We have one more place to go, and that's Pennsylvania. The action was kind of rained out today, but we want to hear from Tammy Rojas out of Pennsylvania about why people are organizing, why we need to include healthcare, expand healthcare, why we're making the connections between living wages and healthcare and vaccine equity, and why we need to do this now. So Tammy, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Reverend Liz. So my name is Tammy Rojas. I'm the Central PA organizer with the People First PA, a grassroots human rights statewide organization campaigning for healthcare as a human right in Pennsylvania. And I'm on the coordinating committee of the PA Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival. As I'm speaking here, dozens of people are gathered digitally due to a winter snowstorm in Pennsylvania from across the entire state to hold Senators Pat Toomey and Bob Casey accountable to the demands of the Poor People's Campaign, such as $15 in the COVID relief bill, healthcare for all, and equity in the vaccine distribution. For several years, I worked as a home healthcare aide, making $10 to $12 an hour, and the work was taxing on my physical and mental health. The insurance plan offered by my employer was neither affordable nor did it actually give me the coverage for the care I needed. I was uninsured for a while as I fought to have my Medicaid switched to MAUD, medical assistance for workers with disabilities. It's a form of Medicaid offered with a low monthly premium for people who are employed. There were times even the premium was difficult to afford, and if you don't pay, they drop you quickly. Due to gaps in my healthcare coverage and lack of funds, I developed long-term health conditions that could have been prevented if we had healthcare as a human right in the United States. It's not fair to make people choose between healthcare coverage and employment. No one who gets living wages should be thrown off Medicaid, which is what might happen because we don't have universal health care. If I would have made $15 an hour as a healthcare aide, I would have been dropped from Medicaid and forced to purchase employer insurance or continue to be uninsured. I contracted COVID-19 the end of January 2021, and the lasting health effects make it impossible for me to do the work as a home healthcare worker anymore. I'm still experiencing fatigue, trouble breathing with the slightest exertion, and COVID fog brain that's affecting me in a variety of ways. I find myself feeling wiped out just doing simple tasks like cleaning the cat's litter box, cleaning the toilet, or gathering trash. Walking up and down the steps of my apartment building causes me great pain and causes my heart to overwork and takes my breath away. The COVID fog brain has me experiencing depression symptoms, trouble thinking deeply, forgetfulness, getting my thoughts to come out in words or phrases that make sense to others. And the oddest part is, I don't feel the sensation of hunger, thirst, or even feeling full. So I have to be really on point that I'm drinking and eating and not overeating as well. COVID-19 affects everyone differently, and for many, the symptoms linger on. It's been almost 4 weeks for me since I was exposed or experienced the first symptoms, and I'm still having lasting symptoms. This virus is no joke, and it's high time the working class demands we get healthcare as a human right, because hundreds of millions of us need it, and tens of millions are needlessly suffering without it. Learning from our experience in the pandemic, we must pressure the administration to separate healthcare from employment and stop pandemic profiteering by passing a truly universal single-payer healthcare system.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for your words, for your call to action for us, and for reminding us that we could do better. We have the resources to do it, and it's just lies. It's just the lie of scarcity that keeps us in this situation. And so I think it's very fitting and very connecting to then pass it back to Saru, who's going to introduce our next speakers, because they show us that it can be done differently. There is another way.
Thanks, Reverend Liz. There's one other state we wanted to uplift, which is Colorado, where Senator Hickenlooper has not yet signed on to the Raise the Wage Act. And we hope the fact that he was a former restaurant owner will not keep him from doing the right thing and endorsing the Raise the Wage Act and a full COVID package with healthcare reform. So we'd like to introduce Day Noguera, who's a worker member in Denver, Colorado. She couldn't join us live because of a health emergency.
Hi, my name is Day Joali from Denver, Colorado. I have been working in the industry for 6 years, and like many others, my life has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. I am constantly having to expose myself to the virus, and I have been experiencing a new form of harassment, which is from those who take it upon themselves to defy the CDC guidelines. I have been yelled at many times. I have been called the B word. I have had people take off their face masks and get close to my face just to prove a point, which hasn't been easy considering that my family, who's also in the industry, have been laid off or have had our hours reduced to the bare minimum, which doesn't make it easy to pay off any of the already existing bills that we have and the piling medical bills that we have. And I personally have had to take off a semester off my school to be able to afford living, and I'm still trying to pay off my last semester. So it has been very hard, especially because the income hasn't been what it used to, which wasn't a lot previously anyway. We're trying to make it through. I am still trying to make it through. I'm hoping that I can get back to school and get back with my goal by next semester, but by the looks of things, if things don't change soon, it will probably be another year until I can afford to go back into school, which is unfortunate because I have so many goals that I want to accomplish that I just can't. Anyway, thank you for your time. Bye.
Thanks, Day. And then also have a fabulous small business restaurant owner from Colorado, who's both in Colorado and Arizona. Thank you, Pete Turner, owner of Illegal Pete's in both Colorado and Arizona, where we've got senators in both states still not signed on. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here, and yeah, have the pleasure of doing business in both states. I've been in Colorado. August 15th will be 26 years. Celebrated our 25th anniversary in a weird year last year. And been in Arizona for 6 years. Anyway, so yeah, talking to Senator Sinema and Hickenlooper again this Wednesday. Anyway, as a business owner, we implemented what we called our living wage program starting in June of 2015, where we took our tipped minimum wage from $9 in 3 bumps over 3.5 years to $15 minimum with tip on top. That last raise to $15 was January of 2019. And so we are a successful example, kind of a business model of how minimum wage increase and reset is not only the right thing to do, it's good business. And in that time, in the 5+ years, we've almost doubled our store count, and our average unit volume has gone up by about 50%. We've got very low turnover because, for obvious reasons, and a highly engaged staff that has allowed us to see top line sales growth, but bottom line efficiencies and more engaged staff that are really looking out for the business. And so I am here to basically advocate for the minimum wage increase. And I also agree with healthcare and everything else, but I'm kind of going to bat for the minimum wage, the Raise the Wage Act, because I've seen it work. And I think it's the number one most impactful thing that we can do as a country right now is to get those 30 million plus frontline, minimum wage workers a raise. And those are the most impactful dollars that anyone in this country will see right now. And basically essentially every one of those dollars raised will go right back into the community. And it allows our workers, we've seen it, to work the one job with dignity and to raise a family and to go out and be customers, to engage in the community and not have to struggle with working multiple jobs and not even be part of the community. So we've seen it impact, our local community. And, we believe in it. We've seen it. And it's well past time that we do that. And one last thing, the pandemic has definitely highlighted how important, the frontline workers are, right? Essential. That's all we hear. Essential, essential, essential. So it's really shown this country just how important, in the world really, how important these workers are. So let's put our money where our mouth is. And really that money builds on itself, right? In time and just quality of life and people being able to engage again, schools, communities, etc. I mean, it's well past time. And again, I'm willing to talk whenever needed because it's been really good for my business. So.
Well, thank you so much. Powerful words from a really influential business leader, showing us that we can do better, and in fact we must. So in the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, we always say we can't be loud and wrong. And so we want to kind of close out our broadcast today hearing from an economist and a president of the Economic Policy Institute, a true partner in this work with the Poor People's Campaign and the movement, who have taught us and who we have worked together to say that actually lifting wages, that actually having health care, that the lifting from the bottom actually is what's best for this economy. We hear so many lies in this moment that this is going to, hurt rural communities, and we and all of these other kind of lies. And so we want to hear, and so I welcome Thea Lee to this program. Thank you so much for being with us and for everything that you do.
Thank you, Reverend Liz, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you and with the Poor People's Campaign and with all the amazing activists who from around the country who are speaking. And I just wanted to say how important this is from an economics point of view, that we need to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We need to get rid of the sub-minimum tipped wage, and we need to index it to inflation so we don't have to go through this charade every couple of years, this political football, because this is exactly, as Pete said, exactly what the economy needs for a robust recovery. That putting money into people's pockets who need it, the pockets of essential workers, of people who have families, is exactly what we need to get the economy jump started again. And because we've seen with the pandemic how incredibly unequal and disparate both the recession and the health impact of the pandemic have been, we know that the minimum wage is one of the most effective tools in our policy toolbox for addressing racial injustice, for addressing gender injustice. Women and people of color are the majority of people who are earning the minimum wage, and therefore we would lift about 32 million people's wages. That is good for the economy. We lift about more than 1 million people out of poverty, and all the research shows that there really is not a negative job impact of raising the minimum wage, that this is what causes people to be able to stay on the job, to be more productive on the job, to get to work, and to stay healthy. So we at Economic Policy Institute are so proud to partner with the Poor People's Campaign and to support this important work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Thea, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We've heard from tip workers, we've heard from home health care workers, we've heard from call center workers, we've heard from unemployed folks and those without health care or with inadequate health care. We've heard from movement leaders and from business leaders and from economists, and we all are saying the same thing. We need a just COVID relief package. We need to raise wages immediately for a minimum, for a floor, for a compromise of $15 an hour. And we have to include everybody in, nobody out. We need to expand healthcare, and we need to make sure that we ensure the rights and liberties of all 140 million people who are poor, or one healthcare crisis, one pandemic, one job loss, one storm, one energy outage away from economic ruin. We are here to say that we're rising together in power, and we need people to keep on taking action together. That means we need you to call your senators, to call your congresspeople, to send in letters to your senators, to send in letters to your congresspeople, and also to call the senators of both Arizona and West Virginia who are currently threatening to block what Reverend Barber has called the Selma moment of our lifetime. And so we cannot miss this moment. We cannot continue to have low wages. We cannot continue to not expand healthcare in a major health crisis. We cannot continue to leave out some workers and to divide and conquer people. So it's been a powerful time together today. We thank the Poor People's Campaign, thanks One Fair Wage. We thank Communication Workers of America. We thank SEIU. We thank Unite Here. We thank all of the leaders and our coordinating committees and activists and organizers from different organizations, including those here, for making a noise together, for raising these issues together, for coming together and forward in power. So please make sure that today and all this week, you go to the poorpeoplescampaign.org website and you make sure that you do call your senators. We have a very easy tool to do so, that you do call those senators in West Virginia and in Arizona, and that you continue to stay engaged and putting action together. So we thank you for being here. Thank you for the actions that are taking place all over the country. We've had thousands, tens of thousands of people joining us online today, and we have so many folks in 8 states and DC taking action together in the streets, despite the weather, despite COVID, doing it very safely, but coming together in power. So as we say in the Poor People's Campaign and in this movement, we're going to move forward together and not one step back. And that's indeed what's happening. Forward together, not one step back. We'll see you all next week. We'll be here again for Moral Mondays. May we all rise in power, and may we win wages and union rights and health care and everything that people need to thrive, not just barely survive.